All right, brothers, welcome to today's session. Today's session is on something that could be considered to be a little bit advanced, mainly because this covers the stages of your reboot. And within the implementation program, there is a wonderful little um, infographic that walks you through the five different stages. But this can be considered to be advanced because each of the stages has their own map. And you don't need the maps in order to fully rewire your brain. Thousands of men have already come through this program and accomplished that without the maps. It's a little bit complex and advanced because it does require you to remember and keep track of more things than are necessary, in my opinion. So, what I'm going to do today, even though it's advanced and we do share it mainly with brothers who are in the intensive program, is I'm just going to share the early reboot map. And I'd love to hear you guys' opinions on it. And if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them in the comment section below. This is being streamed to Facebook. Okay. So there are five stages for those of you who are not aware of this particular system, which is my system called the Porn Reboot system. There's the pre-reboot stage, there is the early reboots, there is the mid reboot, there's the late reboot, and there is the maintenance stage where your brain has rewired and all you're doing is just maintaining specific habits and lifestyles so that your self-image can ultimately change. Um, Now, the stage before this stage, the early reboot, is called the pre-reboot, and you're usually not in this program at that point. That is where you are still coming to terms with the reality of what has happened to you. You're not sure if you need help. You're like, do I need to work with a therapist, a coach? Do I need to be in a program? I'm still experiencing so much shame. My ego is still very much active. So I'm a man, I can deal with this on my own. All of that is pre-reboot behavior. And a lot of brothers vacillate between early reboots and pre-reboot. So they jump into the early reboots, their ego kicks in, shame kicks in. They're like, you know what? I'm not gonna do. I'm not gonna do this. It's too hard. I'm dealing with a relapse right now. My life is not magically changing because I'm in a group or working with a therapist or a coach, and they think they're gonna leave that recovery process and do it on their own. But what happens instead is that they end up going back to the pre-reboots. So this is assuming that you are in our group and you are in the early reboot stage, which is stage two. Now, the early reboot basically completes the task of emotionally and cognitively processing whatever crises brought you into the porn reboot system. So, whatever it was, whether it was your wife or your girlfriend threatening to leave you because of your behavior escalating, and you watching some sort of pornography that you did not feel comfortable with. Maybe you're losing your career. Maybe you're messing up your business. Maybe it's just a new year and you looked back at the last year and you just realize, you know what? The main reason I didn't accomplish my goals and I feel the way I do is because of this behavior with pornography. So, this is what's happening here. You are processing that, you are fully understanding what happens. And one of the things you want to accomplish in the early reboot is you want to overcome distractions and build motivation. I'll say it again. The goal here is to overcome distractions and to build motivation. And I'm saying that because the two things that are going to happen to you in the first couple of months in this program, in many cases, the first couple of weeks, is you're going to be either distracted by other things in your life. You're going to be distracted by other aspects of the program that have nothing to do with what you're supposed to be focusing on. You're going to be distracted by relapses, by anxiety, by other emotions. And the second thing that's going to face you is motivation, right? You may come in very excited, but after a couple of weeks and experiencing a slip or relapse, you don't have what it takes, or you feel you don't have what it takes to move forward, right? So There are three prerequisites, excuse me, to be accomplished before you move on to what we call the middle stage of your reboot. The first is that you have to trust yourself and the system. And I'm going to break down how you accomplish that. Trusting yourself and the system, first of all, let's talk about trusting the system. You're here, and I'll give you an example. One of the first things that we tell brothers in this system is we're not really interested in your slips and relapses early in the program. Why? We're interested more in the data. You're going to slip and you're going to relapse at this point. Nothing magical, and there's nobody on this planet who can stop you from slipping or relapsing in your first couple of weeks. It's almost impossible. Now, you may stop slipping or relapsing when you join the program because there's a placebo effect and you've committed to it, but eventually you're going to face a slip. So you have to trust that the system actually works. We have a lot of guys in here. We have the testimonials. We have reboot leaders. We have brothers who are very advanced in their reboot. We have brothers who are fully recovered and so on. You have access to all of them, but you have to trust that the system works. If you don't, you're not going to move forward. You also have to trust yourself. Now, this may take a while. Sometimes you may second guess yourself. You may say, you know what, I don't think I have what these guys have. Maybe they have some kind of discipline. Maybe they have some sort of willpower. Maybe they're just more excited about this. Maybe, I get depressed. I get apathetic. I get sad. I get demotivated. No, you were accepted into this program because you went through a screening process. And that screening process is designed to look at what you have, the characteristics that you have that are going to make you successful in this program. We do not enroll brothers in this program who are going to fail. That's not great for my brand. If we feel somebody has too many issues, brother, we will send them to a therapist or refer them to someone else. You just need to learn how to trust yourself. And we have the community for that. So, how do you do this? Well, you have to learn a certain principle. That first principle is called progress over perfection. So, instead of trying to get through the first couple of weeks, the first couple of months in this program by, oh my God, I invested in this program, so I'm never going to relapse. If I relapse or slip, I'm a bad person. Brother, you've got to get rid of that. If you came from no fap or 12 steps or some willpower methodology, no. The important thing is you're progressing. What is progressing? You are learning from each subsequent slip and relapse. You are learning something, you're applying it, and the next time you experience a slip or relapse, you're able to identify, okay, you know what? I didn't set the right boundary. I didn't have adequate self-care. I wasn't sleeping right. I wasn't eating right. I wasn't taking care of my mindset. I was spending way too much time on my phone. I've overwhelmed chasing dopamine all over the internet, watching YouTube videos, and so on and so forth. So you're going to learn about progress over perfection. Perfection is, I want to get through this without slipping or relapsing. Now, as the saying goes, you got to break some eggs to make omelets. It's okay. It's okay. So that's the principle that you have to, first of all, master. That's not going to happen overnight either. There's going to be some resistance, and that's natural. You also have to build up habits, specific habits. And this starts with establishing non negotiables. Non negotiables are simply you pick something from this program that you are going to commit to, and you're going to commit to doing it every single day or at a very specific time every week. For some guys, their non negotiable is I'm never going to miss the neural reprogramming coaching session every Thursday. Their non-negotiable is I'm never going to miss JK's a weekly Q&A session. Their non-negotiable is doing their morning routine every morning. Like, you can pick one or a couple of these, but you must have non-negotiables. If not, you are not going to be consistent in this program. And moving past the early reboot requires consistency. So my recommendation to you is to pick up to two, just two non-negotiables that you're going to commit to every single day. That means you cannot negotiate. Oh, I have to go to work early. I have to spend time with my girlfriend. This emergency care. It gets done no matter what. Okay. Now, when you master the principle of progress over perfection, this is where you build confidence in your reboots, because you begin to realize that even if I'm slipping and relapsing, I'm starting to learn that the space between them is less and less and less. And I'm learning something. I'm learning and I'm implementing. It's not, you're not in the mid stage yet. You haven't completely stopped relapsing, but you now believe in the system and you believe in yourself. So you're motivated to keep moving forward. Once you've established non negotiables, then you've developed what we call diligence. What is diligence? Diligence means when you do something, whatever it is, you do it with great focus. You do it with intention. So, for instance, if you decide that you're going to put together a morning routine, then instead of just being wishy washy about the morning routine, when you sit down, you're like, you know what, I'm going to be serious about this for 30 minutes or an hour. You're not screwing around on your phone. You're not getting distracted. You are doing that thing. Why? Because it's only two things that you have to keep as your non negotiable, like a minimum. You're not doing too many of them. It is easier to be diligent with one or two non negotiables than it is to be with a whole bunch of different things in your life. So, for those of you who are trying to do all sorts of self improvement things, while you're going through your reboot, you're going to find it a little bit challenging to trust yourself and the system simply because you've never built up that skill of diligence, right? Hope you guys are still with me at this point. The next thing is the next prerequisites to moving on to the middle stage of your reboot is understanding and dealing with withdrawal symptoms. So, the principle to master here is the principle of working with your brain instead of against your brain. So, basically, working with your brain would be doing something like actually, let's take a step back to talk about withdrawal, because some of you who are going to be watching this have not been through the withdrawal eliminator method. Um, you have built up a habit of seeking large amounts of dopamine. This is also what we call a process or behavioral addiction, which means that you are addicted to the neurochemicals, the hormones that are being released when you are aroused. You're not really addicted to orgasm. If you were addicted to orgasm, you would just jerk off in a minute and you'd be good to go. No, 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 no. You are addicted to the entire thing. You're addicted to the search. You're addicted to finding the perfect scene. You're addicted to seeing all kinds of different scenes, different types of sexual positions, different sort of taboo things. That is what you're addicted to. That is why the porn sites have all kinds of pornography and in such high volume, simply because that is what you want. So understand that once all of that is pulled away from you, you're still going to be seeking it. You still have a lot of dopamine receptors that are no longer able to get that dopamine. So as a result, there are going to be some negative feelings. There's going to be a little bit of, well, not even a little bit, honestly, there's going to be quite a bit of craving for that. And we have an entire module where we talk about dealing with that. I won't go into it, but the principle to learn here is working with your brain instead of against it. Now, working with your brain means you don't, every time you experience an urge for something, for pornography, for maybe getting on Instagram to look at a bikini picture of some chick, whatever you're actually into, don't fight the urge. So our natural instinct is to fight the urge. And this is working against your brain. Every time you work against your brain, you're going to end up using willpower. This isn't going to work. You guys already know that willpower is finite. Yes, you can build up your willpower to a very high level, but not enough to get you through an entire year of sometimes weekly urges that could last a couple of days. So, working with your brain when it comes to something like urges simply means learning how to observe the urge. So the urge comes up. You realize that you had no control over that urge. Working against your brain means fighting. You're going to lose against your brain. It means fighting the urge using willpower, trying to avoid it, cold showers, going outside, running, all that. None of that works in the long term. What you do is you sit with the urge. And all the tools we've designed are designed to get you to be in the moment. If you notice, none of the tools have you running away. All the tools are about, let's say, the masturbation checklist. It's about what is happening in the moment. The rational, irrational behavior exercise. What is happening in this very moment? We want you to sit with the urge and not just sit with it and bear it, because that will lead to you still using willpower, but to sit with it and understand it. Eventually, you will understand one characteristic of all your very strong, seemingly overwhelming sexual urges. And that is that all these urges will eventually pass. And you will become, I wouldn't say friends with it, you'll become quite familiar with it. Don't worry, we teach you how to do this as you go through various modules in the program. Um, the mindset to develop at this point is the big mindset of slips are data. Now, it's very difficult to work with your brain instead of against it and understand withdrawal when you view every slip as a reason to get upset, a reason to feel sad. Because you know what's going to happen? You're going to end up medicating your sadness. You're going to end up medicating those negative feelings with your out of control behavior. So you have to learn how to be logical about the slips. The slip happened. You're still going to feel bad. Don't get me wrong. That's okay, right? Give yourself some time and don't wallow in it. And we'll teach you how to do that as well. But get the data from it. Why did this happen? What's the boundary that I may have crossed or I may not have established? What is the self care I didn't implement? Why did this happen? How do I prevent this from happening in the future? Every time you interact with a reboot leader in this group, they will usually ask you that, the experienced brothers, because that is how they got to the point where they're at. And don't get me wrong, it's not that they don't slip or relapse. It's just that they've been through this process multiple times compared to you, right? So that's slips are data, and that's the mindset to learn. Now, when you work with your brain instead of against it, you get you experience increased self-awareness. Increased self awareness means when you are able to sit and observe your urges instead of doing what you've done all these years or whatever NoFap taught you or your therapist taught you, now you understand a part of yourself. Understand that your urges are still a part of yourself. Why do you fight it and try to push it away? The moment you understand it, you gain power over it, not by saying you're powerless to it, but simply by understanding it, allowing it to be, using the tools to understand it. And yes, in that process, sometimes it will overwhelm you, sometimes you will slip, but slips are data. So you're still going to use it to as a tool to move forward in your reboot. So that's what you get, increased self-awareness. And I want to make something clear. You see this furthest column on the right with reboot confidence, diligence, increased self-awareness. The beautiful thing about rebooting is that everything that you gain, the fruits, so to speak, of each stage of this program are things that you can apply to multiple areas of your life. It is not just to your reboot. Your reboot confidence is something that's going to impact your life. Diligence becomes a quality that you can apply in studying, in work, in your career. Increased self awareness is something that's with you forever. You become aware of your relationships, you become aware of certain other behaviors that you have. And once you've learned and you've developed the mindset that slips are data, this is where you develop self compassion. You start learning how to forgive yourself because all you've been doing now is being very hard on yourself. So you either end up blaming yourself when you slip or you end up blaming somebody else. What does that mean? For instance, there's some guys who may join the program and they come in and they're 3 weeks or 4 weeks in, a couple of weeks in, and they start going like, oh, you know what? I'm still slipping. I'm still relapsing. It must be because this program works. Doesn't work, excuse me. Then your subconscious starts looking for reasons for you that for reasons for your slip. You're like, oh, you know what? It's not working because I see a lot of guys slipping in the group. It's not working because this is a Facebook group. It's on Facebook. It's on social media. That's your subconscious looking for reasons to do that. But most of all, we're hard on ourselves, right? We keep beating ourselves up. But this is where you learn self compassion. You're rational. You didn't do anything wrong, brother. Your brain rewired because of this out of control behavior. It is not your fault. You are not a bad person. You're not a sinful person. You're just a human being who is living within a time and with technology that our brains and bodies are not designed. We're not designed to work with high speed internet or high speed internet pornography, or to consume all these information. So you are a victim of this. I'm not saying have a victim mindset. I'm just saying be compassionate. All right. It's not you. The next prerequisite, brother, to move from the early reboot stage on to the mid reboot is learning how to stay accountable and ask for help. And this is often a challenging one. Now, make no mistake, brothers, in order for you to progress from the early reboots on to the mid reboot stage, you do have to trust yourself in the system. You do have to understand and learn how to deal with withdrawal. And you must learn how to stay accountable and ask for help, or you're not going to move forward, right? The principle here is visibility and clarity. Well, what does this mean? It means that when you stay accountable, other people are able to see you. You have been living in isolation for so long. That's what people go like, oh, it's just the Facebook group. But are you using the Facebook group? There's so much power in this. People see you. You're no longer hiding your behavior. You put it out there. When you get covenant eyes, it has the screen reports. So your accountability partner will see you if you are trying to access pornography. Visibility is very important. And then you get clarity. What's the clarity you get? Well, when you post in the group, before this, you may have been alone. Before this, you may have been in a course where they didn't give you much support. But here in the group, you can get clarity about what is happening, about your withdrawals, about how you feel about this stage of your reboots. Right now, literally, as you watch this, you are getting clarity about this process and some of the things that are necessary for you to move forward, right? Um, you also gain activity too. So I'm going to tell you how all of this connects together. Um, Visibility and clarity goes together with activity. A lot of us need to take action. A lot of us easily enter a stage of apathy when it comes to our reboot at a certain point. And accountability leads to activity. Why? Because other people are watching you. Other people are going to ask you if you've taken action. From the moment you join this group, Reboot Hero is already having you take action. He's asking you to do certain things. The reboot leaders are checking in with you. I will check in. Your reboot strategist who enrolled you might check in with you as well. But here are the fruits of this, of accountability: visibility, being seen, and clarity. Having clarity about what you need to do in your reboots. This is what creates focus. A lot of guys go like, oh, I'm not focused. I'm not able to focus on my reboots. Brother, all you need is, number one, to be seen by other people and to constantly get clarity on where you're going. What else do you need for focus? If people see you, like, hey, this is what I'm doing. And of course, we're all keeping you accountable. And we keep giving you clarity about the path that you're supposed to be on. You have no choice but to be focused. And then clarity and visibility leads to progress and encouragement. So, what does this mean? Clarity and activity. That means when you know where you're going, you have clarity about the system, and you're taking action. That is progress. That is almost the definition of making progress. And activity, doing things and being seen while you're doing it, leads to encouragement. So when you're being seen taking action, and you are, when you're being seen taking action, you are encouraged to keep moving forward because you have brothers who are responding to you in the group. You have people that are seeing you. And this formula is critical. I think if there's nothing you take away from this particular training that I'm sharing with you, if there's one thing you should take away the formula for accountability. Visibility plus clarity leads to focus. Clarity plus activity leads to progress. Activity plus visibility leads to encouragement. And when you have focus, when you have progress, when you have encouragement, the program works for you. you become positive, you become excited. That's what you're here for. You're here to go through this process and actually have results. So at the end of the day, when we go through all the different, I call them fruits of the early reboot, reboot confidence, diligence, increased self-awareness, self-compassion, focus, progress, and encouragement, it might seem like a lot. But brother, here's the thing with the pawn reboot system. That is the first stage. All of this is the foundation for the things to come. As for the timeline, it is very dependent on the brother. So basically, if you are very distrustful of the system, if you are struggling a lot with withdrawals and you don't take advantage of accountability, it's going to take you a while. So for the brothers who are watching this and going like, oh my God, I'm not sure, this is overwhelming. Like I mentioned, this is advanced stuff. I usually just share it in the intensive group. But understand that every single person in this group is struggling with one of these three prerequisites. They either struggling with trusting themselves in the system, or they're struggling with understanding and dealing with withdrawal, or they're struggling with accountability and they can't ask for help. They don't know how to ask for help. It's okay. You're going to be struggling with one or the other. Personally, I struggle with all three. That's why I have such a deep understanding of this, because I struggled. You guys are, fortunately for you, the most some of you guys are going to struggle is a couple of months. I struggled for years with each of them. I'm just saying that so you have hope uh, um, uh, for rebooting. Okay. So excuse me, it's a little bit late while I'm recording this. It's like 10 p.m. right now, but I really wanted to get this out to you guys today. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it gives you better insight into your reboot. This is going to be on Facebook. So go ahead and ask any questions you have, and I will respond. I'll be happy to clarify. Um, and I believe next week we will also have another training that's going to be shared in here. All right. So thank you guys for watching, and I will hop on later on tomorrow to look at some of your responses. Talk to you later. Have a good night.